Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video in the Python series. In this video, I'll be teaching you about nested for loops. Last time we learned about for loops, which is just a simple way of repeating your code, and it's especially useful for iterating through lists, to access each value in a list and do something with it. And previously we also learned about nested if statements, a way of putting if statements inside of other if statements. So when it comes to nested for loops, it's exactly the same thing. So nested for loops are simply for loops within for loops. So I'm just going to give you a few examples of how that could be useful and what they look like. So let's just, I'm going to give you two pieces of data here. We have a people's list and a foods list. So there's just some random names here and then some random foods. And what I want to do is print out all of the foods for each person. So let's say that each person here is really fat and they want to eat all of this food all at once in one night. So what we want to do is loop through this people list, and then for each iteration we're going to have a single person, right? And then for each of these people we want to do a second loop that prints out that they're eating each of these foods one by one, okay? So let's go ahead and take a look at how that would be done. So we'll do for person in people. So that's the outer loop to be able to loop through each person in the people list. And then now we want to do for food in foods. And this is the inner loop to be able to get all of the foods one by one, okay? And so for each of the foods we want to do print, and we want to say something like John wants to eat and then the food name. And a way you could do that easily is just by doing person, comma, is going to eat food. And these will all be combined into one single string. So person space is going to eat space and then whatever the food is for that current iteration, that current loop, okay? And then, so let's see what that looks like. So we'll run this now. So right click, run, and then we get all this output here. So John is going to eat pizza. Pasta, salad, sandwich, cake, pie, soup, pizza. Here we're now on Mary, so the second one, Mary. Then we go to Bob, then we go to Jane, Jack, Jill, Fyron. So you have to be careful here to understand what's actually going on. Pay attention closely. For each person in the people list, you're printing out each food one by one. So this outer for loop here only runs once, right? It's just going to go through each person one by one. But for each iteration of that outer for loop, you're going to have another loop every single time for each person. So to calculate the total amount of loops that you will need, you can simply do the size of this times the size of this. So in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 49 total iterations or 49 total loopings. Pretty cool, right? And yeah, that's pretty much it for nested for loops. I could show you more, but we're going to see plenty of examples down the road. What I want to do now is just give you two more examples of, some uses for loops in general. So the first one is going to be a Fibonacci sequence. This is something that you're going to very commonly see when you're learning about computer science, something like, especially like a class such as discrete math. That's something that we learned in college. And so a Fibonacci sequence is like this. So you have 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, and 14, or 13, oops. So the way that this works is essentially, you start off with 0 and 1, those are the first two numbers in the sequence, and then to calculate the next number in the sequence, you simply add the last two numbers. So that's why we go to 0 to 1, that's why 0 plus 1 is 1, 1 plus 1 is 2, 1 plus 2 is 3, 2 plus 3 is 5, 3 plus 5 is 8, 5 plus 8 is 13, and then it goes on and on and on forever, okay? So that's how you can find the Fibonacci sequence. So if we want to go ahead and make a simple program that prints out the Fibonacci sequence, we can do that pretty easily. So we'll start off with num1 is equal to 0, num2 is equal to 1, then we'll print out Fibonacci sequence. And so obviously it's going to start with 0 and 1, so we'll just print those out right away. Print num2. And then now we want to use a loop here to continually find the next Fibonacci sequence numbers for however long we need it to. So we can do for I in a range, and we'll say from we have to sort of decide how many we want to do it for. So let's just say a range of 10. So we'll go for 10 more numbers. So to calculate the next number, we simply add the last two. So num3 is equal to num1 plus num2. And then we can print out num3, right? Because that's the next number to be in the sequence. But we have to remember to actually change and update num1 and num2 to the new current last two numbers, because we just calculated a new number in the sequence and printed it out. So we have to update num1 and num2 because those reflect the last two numbers in the sequence. So that's pretty easy actually. All we have to do is do num1 is equal to num2, and then num2 is equal to num3. And then the next time that this loops, it will use that to calculate the next one, and then just repeats the process over and over and over. Okay? And that's it. So let's run this now and see if it works. There we go. We get 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 55, and 89. Awesome. So it seems to be working perfectly. And you can expand this however much you want to, so you can print out as many Fibonacci sequence numbers as you want. And Python is really great because it supports really big numbers, so you can really have some fun with this and, you know, make it as big as you need, generally speaking. So let's try 10,000, see what happens. And yeah, you get insanely huge numbers. So yeah, realistically, you don't need these giant numbers, but just to play around, it's kind of fun to see all this here. All right, so the next thing I want to show you is how you can use for loops to calculate the factorial of a number. That's another very common thing in computer science and math. So a factorial of a number is simply the number times every number before it. So for example, if we want to find the factorial of 4, that would be 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. That's the factorial result of 4. Another way of denoting factorial is by doing that. Put an exclamation mark after it, or maybe it's before, one of those. I think it's after one of those. But anyway, so to calculate the factorial of a random number, first let's have a variable that stores the number that we want to calculate it for. So let's do 5 to start with, and then we'll have the factorial result. So we'll just say result or factorial is equal to 1 by default. And now what we want to do is create a for loop that will continually multiply the numbers before the number, and then it'll stop whenever it reaches 1, because that's the lowest number you can go to, right? So it sounds tricky, but it's actually pretty easy to do once you get the hang of things. So for I in range, we're using another range function again. So for the first number, we're going to put the lower part of the range, so where the list starts at, and then the next number will be where the list ends. So in this case, num plus 1. And it's plus 1 actually because it's exclusive, so it doesn't count. It goes all the way up to that number that you provide. So adding 1 will make sure that it counts 5 instead of, all the way up to 4 instead. Anyway, so for each iteration in this for loop, what we want to do is do factorial is equal to factorial times I. So let's run this and then I'll explain in a second. Well, first we want to print out the result, right? So factorial of num is factorial. So let's run this now and see what happens. And we get factorial of 5 is 120, which I believe is correct. So that would be 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. So the way that this works is pretty much the exact same way, except that it goes in a different direction. Instead of going from 5 to 1, it goes from 1 to 5, just because this is a list that is provided. Just because that's how the list is provided from the range function, but it doesn't matter. The direction you multiply never really matters in math, of course, so we're still good. We're getting the right answer. And so if we provide something like 50, we'll be able to get the factorial of 50, which is a really big number. Obviously, when you're calculating factorials, because you're multiplying, the numbers get really big really quickly. So if we go to 60, we're going to get an even bigger number. And there you go. And the cool thing again is that Python is able to support these numbers. So if you look up a factorial calculator online, you will see that these numbers are indeed correct. In other languages such as Java, you can't really use normal variables to calculate giant numbers like this. You have to use special classes like big integer and stuff like that to be able to work with big numbers. But for Python, it's really, really easy. All right, so that's pretty much it for this episode. Now you know how to do nested for loops, which is awesome. So it's just for loops inside of for loops. Pretty simple concept. You just have to get used to it and the way that it loops. And then second of all, I showed you guys how to do Fibonacci sequence and also factorial calculations using Python in for loops. So hopefully you enjoyed that and learned a lot. In the next episode, we're going to take a look at while loops. Alright, so that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. In the description below, I'll leave a link to the code for this episode so you can check it out. You can bookmark it, come back to it later. If you forget any concepts or you just want to review the concepts I taught in this video, I'll mark everything up with comments so you can come back and read the code without having to rewatch the video, although your reviews are greatly appreciated. So yeah, I'll leave a link for that in the description below, so make sure to check it out. And another thing is I'll leave a link to our Discord server. It's a big community for programmers. You can ask for help on your programming projects if you're stuck on something, or maybe you can get some new friends. If you don't have any friends, there's lots of people here. It's growing really fast. You can find lots of people who are passionate about the same things as you. For example, if you like Minecraft Spigot development, you can find lots of people who like that. If you like C++, if you like Java, if you like web development, it's a really, really big programming community. So feel free to join. There's a link for that in the description below. And the last thing I want to tell you is that if you want to support this channel, you can click the join button below this video, and you can join this channel as a member for as low as 99 cents a month, and you can cancel at any time. You get some cool perks like early access to all of my new videos, a cool rank on my Discord server like you see right here on the side, YouTube members, and also you get to see yourself on the screen like you see right now. So if that sounds cool to you, feel free to join. If you don't want to, that's fine. If you can't, that's okay too. I really just appreciate you watching the video anyway. And thank you. Thanks a lot. And that's it. So if you like this video, leave a like. If you want to see more, subscribe. And peace.